going on, y'all? Your man Eric Wilson for the Sports Arena. Hey, it's rare that I have the privilege to talk to two gentlemen who are truly embodying their craft when it comes to the media, the sports media world, specifically when it comes to the AFC South, and more specifically when it comes to the Tennessee Titans. These are two of my brothers, man. Had the privilege of meeting them and hanging out with them, not only at the Black Sport Business Symposium, but just chopping it up with them for a couple of days here and there. First off, you've seen him. He's been on the show a couple times. He is, I guess you can call him the curator, the moderator, the host. He does it all. The halftime show's own Mr. Cortland Griffin is in the building, sir. What's up, brother? Happy New Year. How are you?
Happy New Year, man. Happy to be here. You know what I mean? I got my bootleg Sports Arena background, but
Hey, welcome back. And this brother, I believe he's either making his debut or his second time, but he is truly touring the AFC South. The one, the only Mr. Mike Patton's in the house. Good evening, sir. How are you?
Happy New Year, everybody. And Cortland, I'm coming from the palatial office, man. I ain't coming from the Sports Arena complex.
Hey, man. Mike got the penthouse.
Yeah. So, fellas, hey, first off, man, I want to say before we even get started, man, congrats on everything the two of you have been doing. Mike, you are just all over the place when it comes to, not only finding your lane, but dominating your lane with regard to Tennessee, with regard to the Titans, and truly everything in the AFC South. And Cortland, that is not to try and usurp what you have done with the halftime show and just, creating your own space and on a platform. So I just want to say to both of you brothers, man, much love, many blessings, and continued success. With that all being said, though, we got to talk about yesterday because the King, I believe, is left the building. And I will always defer to the two of you with this. And I'm going to start with Mike because it just seems as though it is the end of the Derrick Henry era in Tennessee. Now, Mike, you've been in the medium rooms, you've been in the locker rooms, you've done those interviews. What can you tell us about what you are hearing, sir?
Well, honestly, it's been seeming like he's going to be gone for a couple of weeks. Just kind of, if you kind of observed, he was asked a question about after one of the losses at home, had he thought about this potentially being his last time being out there, and he actually answered it. It's the first time he'd ever really answered that question. So at that point, kind of knew at that point it was going to be the end. But, all this year that's been talked about amongst fans and groups, things like that as well. But you kind of knew this was it, but, he kind of hadn't, initiated or shown it. But the last few weeks, he's kind of initiated and shown it. And then if you were watching the game yesterday, Sunday, yes, I know it was yesterday. Anyway, I'm losing track of days. But anyway, if you were watching the game, you noticed on the sideline when everyone was at the end of the game yelling, Henry, he waving to the crowd. He threw the peace sign to the crowd. And then he also got on the mic, which he never really does. He got on the mic and addressed the crowd. So when he's doing those two things, it tells me that that's the end of Derrick Henry in Tennessee.
And again, man, that was my whole thing, because to do something not necessarily out of character, but what you have very rarely ever seen him do, that's why it was so important that I spoke to both of you tonight. Now, Cortland, when you look at this, I just want to know your thoughts on it, because I got another question that I want to ask you, Cortland, and Mike, I want to get your thoughts on. But Cortland, give me your thoughts on, just Derrick Henry, what he's been for that organization, setting record after record, and a man who just, as the game went on, he continually just was so consistent and even got better at points. What does it mean when you see him just basically his swan song, if you will, at least in Tennessee?
I mean, it's funny, right? Because Tennessee has had such a long history of great running backs, right? If you want to date back to the Oilers days, right? Earl Campbell, those sorts. But he reminds me more of Eddie George. He ingratiated himself into the city, a Heisman Trophy winner, comes to the city, is a highly touted guy. He embraced this city as his own. Everything Tennessee was Derrick Henry. And when you look at it, it's kind of like he went through the down years, right? He went through the 5-11s and the tough years, and then he was the catalyst. Him and Marcus Mariota and those guys, like they were the catalyst that jump started the success, that 5-year run for the Titans, where it seemed like everything kind of was clicking for the team. And so now, him giving that farewell, I ain't gonna lie to you, I cried real tears because it reminded me of when number 27 left. Like it reminded me of that. It reminded me of when Eddie George walked out the door and it was like, this is the end of an era, and we're now going to have to pivot and start anew at this position and start anew with a new leader and find somebody else. But he's been such a great guy. When you see him out and about, you see him in a bar, you see him on the street, you see him at a random Walgreens or where I met him at Whole Foods. He's just a cool guy. As big as he is, his heart is even bigger. So it's gonna suck to see that guy leave. But man, he's been like I said, he just embodied what it is to be a Tennessee Titan.
Now that's interesting because you use the term leader, and I don't know if a lot of people outside of Tennessee would envision him to be that, because he's very much a very quiet spoken individual. So the high praise is definitely well deserved, but you're calling him a leader. So Mike, talk to me then about just what his leadership has brought to the Titans, and then conversely, what will be missing with him potentially no longer being the leader in the locker room, or a leader in the locker room, shall we say?
Well, I'll say this type of leadership is kind of quiet. It's not necessarily the loudest guy when it comes to talking to the media, but he's always going to say the right things in terms of stepping up for his teammate or standing up for his team. And that's going to be the biggest thing that's going to be missed. Is he is the star of the team, or one of the stars of the team, and he also is a guy that's going to stand up for his teammates, whether you like it, don't like it at all. Prime example of that is when Malik, when some fans say they weren't booing Malik with the play call, but when Malik was booed when he went to the game, and then when he came out of the game, they cheered. That was against, I can't believe it was the Falcons or the Chargers. But anyway, in that game, he talked about it after that game, and he addressed it right then and there, as did all the rest of the players that came to the mic that press conference, and basically said it was wrong, and he's contributing to the team, and you knew before the game that he was going to play. So why are you booing? So he basically he's a guy that does that for his teammates, stands up for his teammates. He's a guy that is right there with them. He's probably not going to be the most vocal guy, and he's doing something, but he's going to be a guy that's right there, and his teammates know where he stands at all points in time. And they're going to miss, in losing him, they're going to miss just, that leadership, that quiet leadership, and there's going to have to be somebody on offense to step up and be that leader. I know Will Levis, all the veterans were trying to, kind of pump him up and help him step into that leadership position, but he's not quite there yet. So there's going to have to be somebody else to step into that, whether it's Chig Okonkwo, whether it's Spears, whether it's, D-Hop, he's still here next year. You never know. But it's got to be somebody else to step into that. And it's going to be a large shadow that they're going to have to step to, figuratively and literally.
Speaking of D-Hop, and I'm glad you brought his name up, that leads me to my question for Cortland, because I have to admit, I'm a little upset. I'm a little upset because D-Hop, and correct me if I'm wrong, gentlemen, D-Hop was 3 yards away from $1 million bonus, and the brother did not get the ball for them 3 yards. Now, listen, you can ask anybody who knows me. I have considered DeAndre Hopkins to be one of the best wide receivers in the entire NFL. And I still to this day feel there are few wide receivers comparable to DeAndre Hopkins. But you mean to tell me y'all couldn't get that brother 3 more yards? Like, come on, man, cut it out. Like that to me that rubbed me the wrong way. So my question to you, Cortland, is how do you feel about it? Are you upset? And since y'all are both in the area, what's being done about this? Because I'm mad.
I'm not so much as I'm not upset, and the reason I'm not upset is because they actually fed him to get him his receptions prop and also I think his touchdown prop. So he got the biggest of his the 2 biggest chunks of his incentives. The 3 yards. that was just kind of, I think, just the way the flow of the game went. Trying to force him the ball. They were trying to play upset. They were trying to play spoiler to the Jags. And in the words of Jeffrey Simmons, that get back is is an MF. I ain't gonna say the exact words on air, but they get back. So they were trying to play spoiler, and I think the guys kind of bought into it. And DeAndre Hopkins, he's a good sport. He understands. And I think he's more of a team player than a lot of people give him credit for. He has a lot of that. He has a lot of that, like Larry Fitzgerald in him, where it's not about him as much as it is about the team and the success of the team. Yes, he wanted his incentives, and you can tell he wanted those incentives. But I think a win and getting the young quarterback, I shouldn't say because Levis didn't play, but getting this team a win and some momentum to go into next season, I think was more important to him than the money.
All right. Like I said, I'm still upset, but if y'all
Can
two,
I add?
please go ahead, Mike.
Okay, he could have made 1.5 million. That's what he could have made in that game, but he did make 500,000. So I'll take 500,000 over zero any day.
Okay. I mean, listen, I'm just, I understand where you're coming from, and yes, I'd rather have. People always ask me, do you want 60% of a watermelon or do you want 100% of a grape? And I'm like, okay, I get the analogy. He did get something out of it, but if it had been like, maybe 40 yards or maybe even like 25 yards, then I would have been like, okay, sometimes those things just don't happen. But three,
actually,
and they got the ball last. You could have just threw him a quick short out route, let him get 5 yards and go out of bounds and get his money. I mean,
so correction, Eric. He actually did get the yardage. He got 1,050. He didn't get the 8 touchdowns. Would have been 750. If he had 10 touchdowns this year, it would have been $1 million. He could have made $3 million in incentives this year. If he would have had 95 catches, he would have got $1 million. He ended up with 77 receptions, I believe, which got him 500,000. So he actually did make like closer to $2 million.
Okay.
So
right,
he ended with $2 million in incentives out of $3 million. I think I think he'd be happy with that.
Yeah, I'm cool with that. All right, let's get back to King Henry because fellas, I got to ask you now. With this looming and it being possibly, like I said, the end of an era in Tennessee. Do you feel that this is the end, or do you feel Derrick Henry will go somewhere else? Mike Patton.
Oh, I definitely feel he's going to go somewhere else. I think this game, like the announcer said, was a statement game to tell everyone he still has some something in the tank left. I mean, he sure doesn't have, he still has some breakaway speed, but he didn't have quite the juice that he once had. But, you give him a sufficient offensive line where he isn't getting hit in the backfield as soon as he gets the ball, and he can definitely make some things happen. And, I definitely have some teams in mind that he could definitely help. So he's not done yet. He's definitely a freak of nature. You look at Adrian Peterson. He played well beyond the age of 30 himself. So I definitely can say that Derrick Henry still has something left in the tank and still can offer a lot to some teams.
All right, you gonna willing to share where you think he might end up, or are you gonna keep that close to the vest and let us? Okay, well then please, I want to know. Like I'm trying to get the scoop right now. What is going on? Where is Derrick Henry's next landing spot going to be?
Well, one of them could be your team. That'd be Philadelphia. I could definitely see him landing in Philadelphia.
That's my dog. Like Mike, my dog. I love Mike. That's my boy. What's up, Mike? I like that. Thank you.
Well, you're gonna hate the other one. The other one, I could see him landing in Dallas because actually he has a home in Dallas, and so he lives there in the off season. So it wouldn't be a surprise if he ends up there either.
I know. Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I was like, I see him in, unfortunately, with that star on his helmet.
Oh.
I lied. Following the Eddie George.
Eddie George.
I don't need to hear Mike Caratenuto every week talking about King Henry. I just don't need to hear that in my life. Like that's just something I don't need. But all right, so then let's talk about the team as a whole. This team, I'm sure high expectations from the two of you gentlemen, Cortland Griffin, Mike Patton, here on the Sports Arena tonight, joining me. With where you envisioned Tennessee would be with regard to regular season going into the postseason, yada, yada. So I'd like for both of you to give me a grade on how you feel your team did this year. Cortland, how do you feel on a grade Tennessee fared this year with everything taking the whole season in totality? We're talking injuries. We're talking, decisions made by the coach, decisions made by the players, whatever have you. What is your grade right now with this team?
I mean, given the cap hell that we were left in, given the fact that you had Ran Carthon, who essentially had to play in the bargain bin. He was in the for those who have shopped at Walmart when we had DVD players. We all know about the $5 bin, and that's where Ran Carthon was getting most of his players. He was bargain shopping. Andre Dillard's, the Chris Hubbards of the world, so on and so forth. And then, of course, the undrafted free agent market, which me and Mike talked about on his show, Touring the AFC South, in the beginning of the year, where some of those guys came into the game in these later weeks and showed up. If I had to give it a letter grade, I would say I'm going to give it a modest C+. Like I said, given where they were at the beginning of the year, given the looming rumors of the Kevin Byard trade, which ended up happening before the deadline, and then all of the drama that was kind of going on with the drama that went on in season, the fact that they would still be able to pull out 6 wins in what was a bleak, 2-6, 2-7 start, I think that's fair, and I think this is momentum going forward, depending on what happens with Mike Vrabel and the rest of his coaching staff. But if this is what we're going to have to look forward to as far as like the core guys moving forward in this young roster, I give it a C+.
Touring the AFC South's own Mr. Mike Patton, talk to me.
Cortland is being nice. I will say that. The team had the ceiling of 8 to 10 wins, or where that's what plenty of had looked at them being, and then competing for the division, and they didn't. So in my right mind, I cannot give them a C or a C+. I have to give them a D. Let's give them a D. The reason why we're going to give them that is look at the offense. The offensive line was supposed to be better this year, didn't necessarily reach that. Aaron Brewer kind of didn't really pan out as much as people would like at the position. Brunskill, I would say, because you're pairing him with an inconsistent offensive tackle beside him, he didn't quite play the way you thought he would play. And then, of course, Andre Dillard, we know he didn't play the way we thought he could play. I'm pretty sure Eric knew the inside information there. But as far as that's disappointing. Then Treylon Burks couldn't stay healthy. I'm not going to dog that man because he's injured. I'm not going to dog that. I'm not going to be like a bust and all this. No, I'm not going to say any of those things about him because, hey, I think he's trying. I think he's pushing himself. He did all the things he could do. He just got injured. That just is what it is. But Kyle Phillips, another guy, can't stay healthy, always injured. And then defensively gave up so many big plays this year and then never really solved that. And then, of course, we go along with the offensive line that was inconsistent and a defense that was giving up big plays all year and never really solved that. It was just disappointing, and the D's for disappointing to me.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to put both of you in either head coach or GM positions of the Tennessee Titans. And this is what I want from both of you, please. Mike, I'm going to come right back to you. I want you to give me one player right now on that team that you are keeping and one player on that team that you are willing to trade away or simply release. Mike, you, and then Courtney, you.
All right. Well, I'm going to go with the player that's going to be either trade or released. And I know me and Cortland are probably on the same page. Andre Dillard. He's got to go. He's got to go. You can't place him really anywhere on this line. He can't pass block sufficiently. He just doesn't fit what the Titans want. And a player that has to stay, no doubt about it, the guy that led the team in tackles, Azeez Al-Shaair, that was a great bargain bin pickup, and they have to sign that man to an extension because he is the heart and soul of that defense.
All right, Cortland.
Well, I feel like I think Michael's been a little nice. I'm a little more harsh just because I feel like the possibilities on this roster are endless. But one guy that I feel like could be traded or I would trade or release is Treylon Burks. 2 years into a career, you were supposed to be the heir apparent to A.J. Brown. That hasn't worked out. You haven't stayed healthy. DeAndre Hopkins is, I would say, maybe 1 or 2 years away from calling it quits in the league. And the Titans need to get a legitimate star in there. So if I can, I'm trying to get at least a 6th or 7th round pick for him and trying to boost my draft capital. A guy that I would say I want to bring back. Mike took mine. I'll go with the second priority guy. The Titans need cornerback depth. I think Sean Murphy Bunting is the guy that you got to bring back. He's got jewelry. He's good. I'm not gonna say he's the best, but he's more solid than what you're gonna get in a third or fourth round pick. So I think I would bring that guy back because he can definitely be a solid number 2 on the championship team. We've seen him do it in Tampa.
Okay. Eric, can I follow up with him and ask him something?
Please.
Portland. You did say about trading Treylon Burks. Do you really think you're going to get a 6th or 7th round pick for Treylon Burks, consider what you've seen so far?
I mean, at this point in time, if I had to just go trade value, that's the lowest of the low. You can't get undrafted free agent picks. So,
I don't honestly, I think people would wait for him to be released before.
I mean, and I think that's the caveat. I mean, Eric did say trade or release. So I think the way that this team is going, they could release him just because this is a really, and I'm probably thinking ahead in the show, and I apologize, Eric, but this is a really deep wide receiver draft. I mean, 3 of the guys that are going to be coming out this year are playing tonight, and Jalen Pope, McMillan, and Roma Dunze, and you can get 2 of those 3 guys in the second or third round. So if I'm looking at that, you need guys that can stay healthy. I might be looking to move number 16.
Well, you can move him, but I would say the contract, in terms of releasing him, nah, you're not going to do that because then you're going to eat up your salary cap a little more.
Right.
Cap, so.
I think we had like $78 million right now. So it's more than what we had last year.
I know, but you need every bit of it, especially to rebuild a team, man. Go ahead, Eric. I'm sorry, man.
No. This is what we do. We chop it up, man. I let y'all. This is your expertise. I'm sitting here just because I need some answers. So I'm coming to you fellas with the questions. So I did want to talk wide receivers, but before I get to that, you talked about the draft class coming up, and this is why great minds think alike, because that's where I was going next. Let's talk about your quarterback position, because this is a guy who's going to get all the credit, also the guy who's going to get all the blame when things go right or go wrong. Talk to me about your quarterback class of next year, with what you currently have, and do you potentially see maybe Tennessee eyeing a quarterback to come in? I mean, I know these guys, you've got Will Levis. Do we know if Tannehill is still going to be around? I mean, what is going to happen with this quarterback and your depth chart going into next season?
Oh man, I think Levis is the guy. One thing he said in the locker room after the game was, he hope he's shown the powers that be that he's the guy going forward, and I think he did.
Okay, but that's just trying to make sure that we say the right things at the right time. You know what I mean?
Right. I think he did, though. I think he did. The offense for the better part of his starting tenure looked like he functioned very well in his offense. And I told people this at the beginning of the year in training camp. This offense was made for him. Tim Kelly's offense was made for this kid and his talent. I think going forward, he's your QB1. Now, do I think that Malik Willis is going to be your backup? He could be. But do I think you bring in, maybe Rand Carthon looks to bring in a steady veteran presence to help continue to mold this young man? That's a possibility too. I don't think you go into the draft and draft a quarterback 3 years in a row. I just don't see it happening. You drafted Malik Willis in the 4th round. You turn around the very next season. You trade up in the 2nd round to get Will Levis, a guy who a lot of people felt like was a first-round talent. And then it would look kind of bad for you to go back and try to draft another guy when he didn't play behind the greatest offensive line. He didn't have the greatest of weapons, right? The defense wasn't the best. So you got to give this kid every chance you can to prove himself with every opportunity and not just see him behind what is a cobbled together mess of an offensive line and sparse weapons here and there.
Okay. Mike?
That story sounds real interesting or real familiar. Young quarterback, behind the offensive line that's not necessarily the and not many weapons. We heard that with Malik Willis too, and then they drafted a quarterback. So, I wouldn't put anything past them, but do I think they're going to draft another quarterback? No. I think that in talking to Will Levis and actually listening to him after the game, I don't know if you all noticed, but he wore hats a lot when he did his press conferences after the game. I think he wore hats a lot to kind of hide his face. The reason why I'm saying you get his face is because he was frustrated by the law, couldn't figure out how to get his team past the finish line. And he's a guy that wears his emotions. And you tell he's trying to temper himself when he's talking up there at the podium every single time. And he's a guy that wants to figure it out how we're going to get this team to win. What do I need to do? What do I need to do? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do that? And he also is a guy that studies religiously. I mean, he other guys may have been doing other things, but as soon as his practice is over, he's in the playbook. He's trying to get up to speed as fast as possible to help win. So I think in that mindset, he's got the physical tools. He's just got to trust what he sees, because sometimes he kind of glitches when he sees something and he kind of has to see it again and then throw it. And that's part of being a young quarterback. And then also he's got to the hospital balls. He's got to stop throwing the hospital ball. Now, he threw one to D-Hop, and he got away with it. And he almost threw another one one game, too, and threw it between like three people. And I'm like, okay, that sounds nice. I know you're trying to throw it in a tight space, but you're going to get your wide receiver killed, and eventually he's going to cuss you out. So, to me, learning the intricacies of an offense, knowing where to go, when not to go, when to get down and slide. He's definitely got to learn that, because, Lord, he thinks he's a linebacker when he's running the football. And I said that coming out of the draft. And then also just trying to transfer that bit of knowledge and that passion of leading this team to win. So I definitely think he's going to get the opportunity, and the organization's behind him. Definitely.
All right, my last question to both you gentlemen. And again, Cortland Griffin, the halftime show's on Cortland Griffin and Touring the AC South with Mike Patton. Thank you both for joining me here today. What are you hearing just in your daily routine, being so close with your ear to the ground within that locker room, within that organization, with the draft coming up? What are you gentlemen hearing of as far as potential prospects that Tennessee is looking at to maybe bring on to add to this, I won't say new look team, but just a team that is going to find their identity moving forward?
You want to take this one first, or?
Yeah, I got it. Now, as far as this team, the first thing I've seen a lot, and I've kind of looked around. Crazy if they probably didn't take an offensive tackle first. I mean, looking at Notre Dame, their offensive tackle there, I believe his name is Joe Alt, I believe is what his name is. But he is a very big man, and they need a very big, powerful man at offensive tackle, and they need him now. Because just right now, looking at Andre Dillard, you had Dylan Radence trying to be out there, and Dylan Radence is more the utility guy. He's not a starter, in my opinion. So they need a guy that can put it left tackle, and you're going to be at that spot. You're going to man that spot for 10 years. It's cool. That's good. Put him and Skoronski beside each other, and that becomes your strong side and your left side right there. So that's a guy they're looking at. I would say they're probably going to be looking at the cornerbacks that are coming out. I don't have names readily available for me, but they're definitely going to be looking at the cornerback spot, because in my opinion, I know, Courtney, you said bringing back Sean Murphy-Bunting, but just the reality is, I love him. Enjoy talking to him. He definitely has a wealth of knowledge, but in my opinion, he just gets penalized way too much for it to be on a winning team. And he did that a lot this year. And I understand he's fighting for every single inch he gets on that field. And I definitely understand it from playing a defensive back position. But you got to do it without getting all the penalties. And this year he got key penalties at the wrong times, and it hurt the Titans. Can't say they can bring it back. So I would say they were a cornerback as well. That was two positions I would say would be huge for the Titans this offseason.
Yeah, I agree. I will say this: there's three positions of need, four honestly, but three positions I think that are at the top of that list. Two of those are tackle and cornerback. I think wide receiver is definitely a priority position as well. You're at the 7th overall pick. A couple of the teams ahead of you are probably going to take a receiver. One team in particular, I think, takes a tackle, and that's the Chargers, depending on who their coach is and how that situation plays out. Washington is also a team that's a dark horse that could take a wide receiver or a tackle. But I think Olu Fashanu definitely could be there at 7. Joe Alt, like you said, it can be there at 7. But I think the Titans are in an interesting situation. Rand Carthon is a shrewd operator. Last year, he did some finagling with the draft board, right? With not a lot of draft capital, he traded up in the second round and made some moves and got some really quality players, right? Josh Wiley came on near the middle of the season, ended up on IR, but he showed flashes of what he could be. Of course, we know who Tajay Spears is. Of course, Will Levis, so on and so forth. I think this year you can see them trade down from the 7th spot if they say that they can get a Tulis Fuaga out of Oklahoma State, who's a really big man as well. Big athletic left tackle. Morgan Smith out of Arizona, another big tackle that they can get. I think Jackson Powers Johnson is a guy that they could be. You said Aaron Brewer is a guy who didn't pan out. That center position could be another position they could look to fill in the draft. But I think the names to watch this year are your Troy Franklins, your Malik Neighbors, your Xavier Worthies in that second round. Kalen King, the cornerback out of Penn State. You should be familiar with that name a lot. Number 4 out there in Penn State for your Nittany Lions. So I would love to have him in Titans blue as well. But Rand Carthon, I trust his process. I trust what he's able to do. And this is a very deep draft at each one of those positions. You can get guys in the 3rd and 4th rounds. So it's going to be interesting. I think you can definitely see the Titans go tackle, wide receiver, corner with their first 3 picks.
All right. Well, gentlemen, as always, like I said to start the show, much love to both of you for taking time to be on the show tonight. I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, I got my man, the halftime show with Cortland Griffin, the man, the myth, the legend, Cortland Griffin, doing huge things. And as always, touring the AFC South, the one and the only Mike Patton. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Definitely need to chop it up more, especially as we near the draft, what you gentlemen are hearing. And please, anytime y'all want to drop some little tidbits or exclusive knowledge, hey, I'm happy to put it out there for you, just like you guys do it. But keep doing your thing. Stay blessed. And I will definitely talk to both of you very, very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, your man, Eric Wilson for the Sports Arena. Much love to everybody. We'll talk to y'all soon. Peace.
Thanks again, man.